I remember I actually put him into the club. I think he was at Roma then, because his agent contacted me and said, "Dude, you know what, Liverpool, they're around." So I put him in, and they're around, but I was told that he wasn't a priority. Then we went and bought him next year.
Today we are joined by former Liverpool player, European Cup winner Howard Gayle. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Now I want to go back to what you're probably most famous for among Liverpool fans, the 1981 European Cup semi-final, second leg. Liverpool are away at Bayern Munich. You come on for the injured Kenny Dalglish. Can you take us back to there and how you went from playing in the reserves to playing in such a big game?
I'd scored a hat-trick in the reserves on the Saturday. That season we were pelled with loads and loads of injuries. We were just scraping through the season, and I think in the end again what it did, it cost us the league title. But it was a big squad. There was a lot of quality in that squad, mainly in the reserves. Again, we've been unbeaten all season in the reserves, and we were a good backup, and there were some good players in the reserves who were waiting for their chance, and I was one of those. And we turned up on the Monday morning. I used to go into work with Sammy Lee. Used to pick us up, and we'd be talking about what the day is going to entail. And as soon as we got out the car and we went into the changing room, Roy Evans came into me and said, "You need to go home and get your kit. You're coming away with the first team to Munich." And it started from there, thinking about the game. And that now I was hopeful that I was maybe going to be on the bench, but I never envisaged that it was going to turn out how it did. And fortunately again for us, is that we were able to complete the game, to win the game. We drew the game, but we went through to the final in Munich against Real Madrid.
And as your book is titled 61 Minutes in Munich, you were only on the pitch for 61 minutes, but you made such an impact. Why was it that you didn't stay on until the end?
It's a contentious issue that I've had with the staff, the management, and even some of the players. They were envisioning that I was going to get sent off. Whether they knew the referee better than I did or better than anybody else, then I was fully focused, and the last thing I was going to do was going to get sent off. But again, as I say, they made the decision to take me off, and they put Jimmy Case on to see out the rest of the game. And to be fair again, although I was disappointed that my role or my partition had come to an end, I was chuffed as a punch, because again, Liverpool are my club, and they always came first. And I had a lot of family back home who would have been watching it on the TV, waiting for the highlights at 10:30 on the TV. And it was a great moment. And for me, again, as I say, it was an impact game where I'd made an impact, and the gaffer and the staff felt that what they told, or listening to Bob Paisley's interview afterwards, he was saying that they didn't want to go into extra time with 10 men, and that's why they took me off. And as I say, I think I'd only committed one foul in the game, but for some unknown reason, they didn't trust my temperament to be able to cope with it.
And while you only played 5 games for Liverpool, you were very nearly actually involved in the final as well, is that right?
Yeah, I was watching him, Roy Evans again, who was my coach for the reserves. He said he's come along the bench and said, "Get warmed up, you're going on." And this was about 10 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go. And I'm warming up, and I sat back down, and I'm taking my tracksuit bottoms off, and Alan Kennedy smashed in the winner. And there was no way, again, as I say, that they would put me on. The philosophy was the game was won. let's see it out, and we did.
Am I right in saying that was the high point of your career in terms of the level you were playing at?
Well, this is the level. The high point of my career was playing for Liverpool. I mean, I used to go to bed every night dreaming of being able to play for Liverpool, and I'd always known, I was always worried again that there wasn't any or many black players in football, especially at a footballing giant like, or a colossus of what they were about to become. So reaching where I did, it was a moment in my life again that I'll never forget, and my family and that again were very, very supportive of me. They were also again they were chuffed as punch, and throughout our community again, as I say, it gave a lot of belief, because there wasn't much positive coming out of Toxteth Liverpool 8. 2 years after signing for Liverpool, we went into the 1981 riots, and that was a moment and a traumatic experience, because all my family and friends were involved in the riots, and I wanted to be a part of it, but my two brothers got me and said that you've got to do your bit with the club. That's where you're going to help the movement of around us, showing us that we have got an excellence, that we can do anything and survive within the white culture of the city.
And going back to dreaming of playing for Liverpool as a child, born in Toxteth but moved to Norris Green, but you went all around the country with Liverpool. What were your kind of earliest memories of being a Liverpool supporter, and who were your idols growing up?
Well, my earliest memories was my mum. My dad was an Evertonian, and he used to do a bit of work for Everton, selling pools and coupons and things like that, those around. And my mum's a Liverpudlian, so I always got the Liverpool kits. My mum bought me kits, and although again, as I say, my dad was an Evertonian, and he was chuffed as punch again when your son is reaching the levels that I had, and he got a lot of feedback off it. But again, for me, being able to play for your boyhood team and to be the first one to do it from a black culture, it was a marked change, and I was hoping that change again would mark itself on the club, the recruitment, and how they were going to position themselves in the future. And the likes of John Barnes followed me, Michael Thomas, Mark Walters, Stan Collymore came into the club, and these players again took what I did to the next level. And again, as I say, I was sitting at home and watching all the Liverpool games again, whether I was playing for the other clubs as well, of Blackburn and Sunderland. I was always a Liverpool fan, and they used to curse me out in the other clubs because I wouldn't hide it. You know what I mean? You play for Sunderland, then, but I'm a Liverpool fan.
And when you did sign for Liverpool and you went into a strong reserves team, was there any kind of, being the first black player to play for Liverpool, was there any pushback, maybe not pushback, but negative reaction from inside the club? Or what kind of challenges did you have to face?
Yeah, there would have been. Well, the main one, again, as I put it in my book, was Tommy Smith. And he thought that he was going to be able to bully me out of becoming what I did become. And that was never ever going to happen. And there was a spell throughout my career, as I say, at Liverpool, where my brothers noticed something. Do you know what I mean? That I wasn't talking about the club, or I wasn't as enthusiastic about the club and what was going on inside of it. And I didn't really want to be talking to anybody about it, because I didn't want to be getting the wrong advice, but I knew that I'd get the right advice from my two brothers. So one day again, my brother got hold of me and said, he come to watch me in the reserves on Saturday, and I said, you're not the same player. You know what I mean? What's going on? around. And my younger brother, Abdul, he just went, what's going on in that club? Because they knew. And they really knew what was going on, but they needed for me to say it. And I just said, listen, I've been getting what's her name and Tommy Smith, and there's little jibes and what's going on from some of the other players around. So my brother said to me, we'll come and get you tomorrow morning and we'll go in that club with you. And I said, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Because I knew what they were going to do. If they met Tommy Smith, they'd have battered them. So I had to say, if it comes to that, I've got to do it myself. Sending me two brothers in, again, as I say, that just undermines me. And I remember saying my brother, our kid, he said, if you have to, he said, just pick up something and do what you've got to do. And it never ever come to that because he was a bully. And one morning in training, I was a very good striker of the ball. And when the balls come to me, I think it was a cold December morning, and I pinged it. And the balls then, they weren't like the balls that they train with now. Again, these were bricks. And I pinged it, and it's hit him right on the end of his leg, and it left a big red mark. But he was hopping around, and he was around, and everyone was laughing at him. So he looked at me, and I'm laughing as well. So he kicked off on me, you black this, you black that, around, and I realised now that this was my moment. So I've walked over to him and I said to him that if you ever call me that again, so one night you'll go to the piss in the middle of the night and I'll be in your boat waiting for you, and you won't like what you're going to get. And he backed off. A lot of the players didn't like him.
I suppose the culture change these days might be that there might be more of a reaction from the other players to tell him to stop. Whereas back then, what was the kind of...
Well,
did you have support in the squad?
I did afterwards, because the likes of Emlyn Hughes, he took to me then after that, because again, Tommy Smith didn't like him because he took over the captaincy. So he was bad-mouthing Emlyn Hughes around, and but he was coming to the end of his career. He was on his way out, and he couldn't upset. And I can understand, again, as I say, he's been at the club since schoolboys, and coming to terms with your time at the club was finished again, I could understand, but it was the way that he was treating people, especially me, and it's like he was blaming me for his misgivings. But when I put it on him and told him again what I was going to do, he never ever bothered with me again.
And so you eventually break into the first team, making a few appearances in the 80-81 season. Can you remember that day you made your first appearance away at Man City?
Yeah, it was, what's the name? It was a sunny day. I think we were 2-0 up, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to get on here. That I'm 2-0 up, and what they'll do is want to see the game out. Maybe they put me on as they've been getting beat or whatever, but no, the gaffer put us on for, I think it was for the last 12 minutes. And I think I had a hand in the last goal. I think it was Sammy Lee, and it was a great experience, because being a Liverpool fan, that's what you thrive for, is that if you get the opportunity to be a player within the team, is that you can contribute. Because I knew most of the lads on the terraces, because again, I used to go to away games with them, and they'd be shouting funny things to me, you know what I mean? But it was a great experience and a proud moment for me and my family, being able to achieve that first appearance. And the next one I was looking for again was to start again.
And so, your time at Liverpool, you do lift the European Cup, having played a big part in the semi-final, but then you leave without playing again. Was there any part of you that kind of felt you deserved to have more chances, or did you see the team being one of the best in Europe?
Well, again, I was training with the best in Europe, and I was more than holding my own. I think I was top scorer for the reserves that season as well. And I wasn't getting in, I wasn't getting a look. One morning, Roy Evans come to me before we started training, and he said that I've been banging you. What's the name? I think the first team up were playing away at I think it was Swansea or somewhere like that. It was an overnight stay, and Roy Evans came to me and he said that I've been banging your corner in there, and he said they're not having it. And this was at a time again when we had a periphery of injuries, so everybody's thinking that it's going to be taken out. You know what I mean? But everyone come in and they took somebody else, and he just said, if I were you, I'd start looking for another club because they're not having it in there. And
how did you react to that? Was your immediate thought to go and look for another club, or did you want to fight for you?
No, well, again, I wanted to fight for my place, but when you're getting the message from that level, you know what I mean? That's inside the trading, that, you know what I mean? So when that comes in, and I knew that he knew what I could do. He's watched me for 4 years, so when he and I could see the disappointment in his eyes, in his voice, that they weren't having it, and I went in and put in a transfer request, and Birmingham City were one of the first ones to come in, and there were a few clubs that came in that I turned down, but Birmingham City, I always remember in the 70s, since 1974, they just got promoted from what used to be the old second division into the first division, and they came to Anfield, and they filled the Anfield Road end. You know what I mean? They filled it, and I was impressed by that. So, you know what I mean? There's like a team of within the second city that were well supported. And after, I think it was 13 minutes, we were 3-1 down. By half time, we were 4-3 up. And that's when they had Bob Latchford and Mickey Burns at the back, and Trevor Francis. Them two scored in that game. So it made an impression on me. So when Birmingham came in for me, the manager was a Scouser in Ron Saunders. I knew a couple of the lads from that used to be Aston Villa, Noel Blake and Robert Hopkins, because we'd been adversaries again, where they had some tough battles against them. And Ron Saunders had brought them from Aston Villa. He left Aston Villa and brought those two. And he said that he was building a team to compete with Villa. And it didn't turn out that way, and he ended up selling us all before he left himself. Because I think what happened at Aston Villa was he left before. I'm not sure whether it was the season or whether it was before the European Cup final, but they won the European Cup that year, and Tony Barton, the manager, got all the credit. That was Ron Saunders' team. So I think when he left Birmingham, he thought, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice here, whereas I'm going to leave my side to somebody else's glory. So what he did was he sold us all off. Before the end of the season. He left. He sold Blakey to Portsmouth. Hoppy went to Walsall. I think Mick Harford went to Newcastle, and I went to Sunderland.
Looking back at your career now, are there any regrets, or are you kind of fully happy having watched Liverpool win from another club? Because obviously they won the European Cup again.
Yeah.
The double in '86.
Yeah, well, the biggest regret I had was not gaining more success with Liverpool. I'd have give up Birmingham and Sunderland and Blackburn if I could have spent my whole career, you know what I mean, at the club, but that wasn't to be. So I had to take off and go on the road and gained some other experiences at other clubs, which were largely again great experiences.
One of them, you went to America. One of those experiences.
Yeah, yeah. I got freed by Sunderland. Went and spent I think it was about 9 months in America, but that game was indoor. It was like 5-a-sides, and it was a totally different concept from the outdoor game. And we were away somewhere. I think it was somewhere like Wichita. There was a guy who used to play for Leicester called Keith Weller, and he was our coach. And we were listening to a game on, I think it was on the World Network, and I got homesick. After that, and it wasn't going very well for me again with the setup of the game and how it was played, because what you had two teams, and you had a player who you swapped with. So when he got tired, you go on, or when you got tired, he go on. And I wasn't happy with that, you know what I mean? I'm thinking, well, I've come here to play football and I don't want to be playing 5 minutes, because I think what it was doing, it was enduring injuries, because you were on off. You wouldn't bother stretching, or you couldn't stretch because the manager would, you're on, and that's how quick it could be. So
Americanization.
Yeah, and again, as I say, that's what they're trying to push now. If you see the new rules that they've brought over here now in the English game about substitutes and about time-outs, because I think that'll be the next tradition that they'll change within the English game. I think they'll start offering time-outs to each club, two time-outs, and I think that's not far off.
Kenny Dalglish, who you had replaced in that semi-final in '81, you linked up with him again at Blackburn, and he became your coach briefly.
Yeah, well, he was again. We were really unlucky at Blackburn, and we had a really good gaffer in Don Mackay, and four out of the 5 years I was there, we were in the playoffs. It was always again on a low budget, but he had the charisma again to bring in the likes of Gordon Cowans, Kevin Moran from Man United, Ali Dawson from Rangers, and they had a phenomenal goal scorer in Simon Garner. So again, as I say, we were really, really, really unlucky on a few of the occasions we're trying to gain promotion. We just didn't have that last step. So Kenny comes in, and I'd been out injured, and I'd had an operation, so I couldn't do the pre-season training. So I started the training, and I went in to see Kenny and said, like, what's happening here then? Kenny's word to me was, what was it? He said, I think you know that they're not going to give you another contract here. And I thought, well, why not? You know what I mean? I've been a loyal player. I've been a good player for them. And I played while injured. But that was it. And that was...
How old were you at this point?
I was 32.
So still time left.
Yeah. And again, as I say, I was experienced. I was still quick. You know what I mean? I could still travel, still pass, cross ball, either foot. So I did think that I had something to offer. But that season again, the first season, they got promotion into the Premier League. And that was the ambition of the owner, Jack Walker. So I was gone. I had some trials at Halifax, but I decided that playing football at that level really wasn't for me, and I packed in.
And so since you retired from playing, what has kept you going? What have you been up to?
Well, again, I always asked the question, and that question was always levelled at me of, you know what I mean, you're the first black player to play for Liverpool, and how come nobody else has followed you out of the city? Again, we've bought players, but nobody from the city. So what I did, I set up a football organisation called Stanley House, which was a club that I played for before I played for Liverpool. And I tried to replicate the things that kids were going to face within the academies or the centres of excellence around, tried to prepare them. And as soon as I started doing that, again, Liverpool had never been in our area. Now all of a sudden they're interested in what's going on in the area and trying to keep control over the players, since they wanted to get them in first. So I started a club. We had something like 7 teams. Again, we used to go to a place called Colamendy in North Wales. We used to do our pre-season there. So it was like a training camp away from home. The kids loved it. I mean, they loved all that, the experience of being a footballer, although at that level, but they were good at that level. Is that those little things like that, it helps with, again, being away from home, because again, a lot of kids who go into that footballing world, it's not because of the football ability that they fail, it's because they can't adapt to the surroundings, being away from home, making new friends. So that's what our policy was. And we had a lad who went down to Exeter and they took him, Les Apple. There was another kid, who was it? He got an offer to go to Darlington, and I don't know why. He said no. I think whether or not he was waiting for a bigger name, a bigger club to come into him, or whether or not, again, as I say, he just didn't fancy moving away from home. But he chose not to, and he came back to me. He regretted it. But we have regrets in life, and sometimes, again, most of the time, you don't get a second chance.
But that title of being Liverpool's first black player, obviously, ideally, it wouldn't have been you, and it would have been a long time before. But are you proud of that title? And when you were younger and playing, as you mentioned before, in 1981, did you feel the pressure from your community? As sort of a role model almost? Well,
no. The community was right behind me. The first thing that Liverpool told me, that I had to move out of the community. So I had to buy a house up in Mossley Hill. But I went back into the community every day, because that's where my friends and my family were.
Why did Liverpool tell
you? Well, they were saying that where I was living would have been a bad influence on me, which again, they didn't realise, or they didn't around, is that I was living and had been brought around within my own culture. Now you're asking me to move out of my culture, to go and live into a neighbourhood of people that I don't know, they're around, and where I am now, I know that I'm safe. And but their philosophy was, Bob Paisley, he said that you need to move out of there and set up where I am.
And almost like a keep focus on the football and don't think about it.
Yeah, and again, as I say, and I understood that, and I could see the method in the madness, and maybe again, as I say, if things would have fared better if I was allowed to live within my own parameters, within my own communities. Maybe I'd have settled a lot better, but it wasn't to be. And although, again, as I say, I moved out to the community again, it didn't help in my progress in trying to get into that first team.
You've answered this question a few times, I know, but you were offered an MBE.
Yeah.
Can you explain why you turned that down?
Yeah, well, again, as I say, I see myself, although I was born here in Britain, I see myself as an African. My father came from Sierra Leone after the war to help rebuild the country. My grandfather from my mother's side, again, was from Ghana. So I'd always seen myself as an African. And when I seen what colonialism and the impact that it had on Africa and Africans, and yet Africans were coming to this country and being turned away through immigration rights. Yeah, most of the stuff and the profits and the ambiguity was coming out of Africa was coming here into European countries. They were taking all the gold, the diamonds, the bauxite. There's a component in your phone that you can only get in Africa. And if you take this component out of your phone won't work. You can take other components and it'll work. And I think it's called bauxite, but you can only get it in Africa. So again, these are all the trinkets and that have been stolen over the years. And being a part or having a badge on me to say I'm a member of that culture, then no, it wasn't for me. And I always knew that if it ever, I didn't expect it to be offered to me, but when it did, I always knew that I was always going to refuse it.
And these days, with the football club, with Liverpool, do you have much association with them? Do they get you doing kind of speeches, or do they almost lean on that title of you being Liverpool's black player?
No.
No kind of...
No. I've done something a few weeks ago, but I think that was for the... I think it was for the PFA.
It was for the FA.
For the FA, yeah. But no.
Would you like that to change?
I'm too old now, you know what I mean? I think I've missed out on a lot of the things, and again, as I say, I still support the club, and I wouldn't want any harm or any bad things to happen to the club or the people who support it. But I think as regards to working for the club now, again, as I say, a lot of the people there wouldn't recognise me or know me, as I've not been in the forefront of the club's progress. So, no.
Although racism isn't as prevalent in football as it was when you were playing, we still see incidents of it happening. Most recently against Bournemouth. Do you think that that's a football problem, or is that just indicative of perhaps the society where we're almost going the wrong way?
I think far too often the blame is always laden on football. And I've said this before again, football does more in the reality of bringing people together in their thousands, where they can come to a game and go home to a game safe and sound. And as I say, I've watched government initiatives and around the policies and procedures that they've rolled out. Football does more than any other sport or any other entity on the planet in bringing people together. Our club is a multiracial club that's part of a multiracial city, and idiots like that who, again, as I say, the club issuing with a lifetime ban.
So to go back to the football, Liverpool have just won the league. How do you see this season going?
Well, we've got to be better than last season. You know, we won the league by a country mile. It was a little bit disappointing, the fact that we didn't add anything to it, because again we were in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, was it the quarterfinals of the FA Cup as well, and we ended up with just the league. And again, priority is the league. Doesn't matter again about the only thing that compensates the league is the Champions League.
I think it's interesting you say that, because you come from a generation and playing at Liverpool where the league was, as Shankly said, the bread and butter. For younger fans like myself, winning the league is, obviously I think the European Cup still comes above, but winning the league is this kind of massive achievement, which I think it still is for people like yourself as well. But it's interesting to hear you say that, like, the standards you had drilled into you were so high that the league's just a starting point.
Yeah, well, again, we were always told, again, it's no use winning in Europe, again, if people are beating you at home. Again, you dominate your own country, your own league, and that's what was instilled in us. As you said, that anything else was a bonus. And back in the day, we didn't see, or the European Cup or the Champions League didn't have the value of what it has today. Whereas back in the day, again, as I say, it was win the league, win the league, win the league. Anything else was a bonus. That's how they looked on it.
For younger viewers who never saw you play, there are some YouTube videos out there, but who would you say is most similar to your playing style now?
That's a question that I've never ever put to myself. I think it'd have to be as from a forwards point of view. Again, I used to play on the wings. It's got to be Mo Salah. He's been phenomenal at the club, and I remember just before he came, I actually put him into the club and told that he wasn't a priority, because his agent contacted me and said, "Dude, you know what, Liverpool, they're around." So I put him in, and they're around, but I was told that he wasn't a priority. Then we went and bought him next year.
So, can you tell me a bit more about that? So, Mo Salah's agent?
Yeah, his agent is contacted me through another agency around and said that somebody again who knows the ins and outs of Liverpool, and I think he was at Roma then, but he was looking to come back into the UK, and I forget who it was who I rang up. It must have been the sporting director. Said there's a lad there again, a player there from down around. This is who he is, around, and he's a good player. You know, I think he could enhance us what we need. And I forget who it was, said, "Yeah, he's not a priority." And I thought, as I say, I think he is a priority, because I think that last season again we were struggling.
Do you remember why it was that Salah's agent got in touch?
Yeah, again, because he knew that I was linked into Liverpool. You know what I mean? Again, I was doing a little bit of work for them then, but also again, is I can ring up and get somebody to speak to me, and I think that his agents had looked at Mo and thought they'd be a great fit, an ideal fit, and he turned out to be a brilliant player for us.